Hi guys, this is Tina, so welcome back to my channel again. So we're still working obviously on the junk journal, so hopefully you guys have kind of grabbed your stash and, you know, crafting along. So at the end of the last episode we had just you know, treated this cupcake on the front of this jacket from a book with some gesso or gesso. I keep meaning to actually Google that to check how you pronounce it. So I would just refer to it as treated, or the treatment for the minute. So, you know, looking kind of a lot more in keeping now because it's lost obviously that glossy sheen that it did have. So I'm just going to cut round it. Again, I've got the glare from the spotlight casting a big shadow with my scissor blade. So you have to excuse my cutting because it might not be too perfect, but it is very hard because obviously, you know, everywhere that I cut, the scissors are just causing a huge shadow right across it, so I can't actually kind of see the outline of the cake itself, but you know, that will do. So what I thought we could do is have this one on this you know, what we will make into a book page pocket. So it's just some of that, you know, scrapbook page that I had. And literally I've just glued 2 pages together so that it's more robust and thicker, obviously, than just 1 page. So what I would do is cut it down because obviously I'm going to have it, or the intention is I'd like it on this little polka dot kind of envelope, which is obviously, you know, much narrower than, well, it wasn't narrower, but this would take up the entire thing, so I don't want that happening. So I thought we'll just cut this down a bit. Now it's not really very straight, but never mind. Again, you know, it doesn't really matter because we are making a junk journal and things really don't have to be perfect. You know, the idea is not for everything to be just so, it's for it to be, you know, different and vibrant and, you know, have its take on its own kind of look, really. So we can have it like that. Might trim this down slightly more. So what I'm going to do is just glue this down on the sides. Obviously, again, you know, you could stitch this, but I haven't got my sewing machine here, so I'm just going to use the glue. Oops. Just like that. Bit of glue off of there. Okay, just fold that up like that, and then what we'll do, we'll just trim along the top because it is quite tall, and not just tall, but obviously a lot of blank space going on there, so you know, it kind of looks better trimmed slightly smaller. I don't think I've got my corner rounder, which is a bit of a shame because I quite like to have rounded the corners, so we'll just double check. No, I don't think I have. And the annoying thing is I've thought that to every single episode. And then today, because I've been working on another journal, so I've been having this available for if I needed it for that, and I haven't got it for this, which is just so typical, isn't it? Right. So size-wise, that's a lot better now. So what I'm going to do is just kind of distress ink around both the cupcake and obviously the book page pocket. So I'm going to start with obviously the vintage photo for that kind of aged look, and then what I might do is kind of go around it a bit with, you know, some of the pink to get a nice kind of pink tone going on there as well. And that's that, and then we'll just do the cake like that. Yep, love how the cake came out. It looks really cute. I think these were cherry muffins or cherry cupcakes or something. I think I have actually made that recipe. They were delicious. So there we go. I love muffins, I have to say. Right, so obviously we're going to have these folded over. So I might just glue those down now. So is there, you know, done and on there then. That's one less thing to kind of remember to do. Like that. Okay. So that's that. Obviously we're going to pop this kind of on here somewhere. So I'm kind of thinking the cake probably to one side. So we'll decide which side once we've kind of decided on what kinds of, you know, decorative pieces we're going to have around. Now, a few episodes ago, I kind of said that I had these Bakewell Tart naked bar wrappers. And I was going to attempt to kind of make some sort of little bow with them. I don't know whether it's going to work. And again, they may benefit from being treated, as we're calling it now. So I have got my brush here. Just going to dab it on there. I don't know how this is going to work because obviously I haven't done this before. You know, I really hadn't played with this stuff, let's call it, much before at all. Certainly not on a little sweet wrapper like this. So, you know, I don't know how well it's going to actually kind of take to this wrapper, but you know, we're just here to kind of play around and try things, and hopefully then any of my failures will you know, save you time kind of wasting your time trying out things that potentially don't really work. So, you know, hopefully it's kind of not time wasted, but your benefit too. So I'm just going to leave those to dry for a moment. My brush was wet because I had just tried to, you know, gesso something, or gesso something else. Let's call it treat something else before this video. So that's why kind of my brush was still wet. I've also got these earrings. These are some earrings. I had these as a child, so these are absolutely ancient. Well, not ancient, but you know, a good kind of 30 odd years old. And as you can see, obviously they broke off from the stems. Probably one just broke off, and then I probably, you know, broke the other one off. But I've kept them. I mean, I kept them all these years. Who knows why I kept them originally, but I've kept them now because obviously, you know, for my crafting, I always think, oh, they might come in handy. They might come in handy. So far, they haven't. But who knows? They may do on this journal. So kind of thinking potentially we could maybe have that somewhere, because obviously this is kind of orangey, maybe. I'm not sure. You know, it's just there to kind of experiment around with, and we'll kind of see how things come. I've got this little parking ticket from, you know, recently kind of parking in a car park. So I did wonder about whether we could have this kind of tucked somewhere. So I might just kind of distress ink this, you know, just for kind of decorative bits in the background. It doesn't really look very nice. But again, I was just kind of thinking, what else could I use along the kind of junk theme? Check them in frame and recording. Slightly terrified now that it's not going to be, you know, either in frame or recording. So, so we've got that ticket there. It may be that this ticket doesn't really look quite right on this page, but we could maybe use it kind of somewhere else. Or maybe if we tear along the top bit. Maybe we'd look kind of better. It might be that we're adding too many colours on this particular page, so I might just move that to one side for the moment. Doesn't mean we're not going to use it, but we're just going to kind of wait and see. Obviously, I'm conscious that the background is this beautiful, you know, bluey greeny colour. So we could kind of do something with this bit of dress. We also have obviously got this fabric here that we used as the hole reinforcers. So, I mean, obviously we could kind of use that and incorporate that somewhere. So let's just have a kind of bit of a look. And again, maybe then we're not going to be able to use the bow, because perhaps then, you know, the bow is kind of, you know, taken away from the kind of colour scheme that's going on here with the more blues and bluey greeny colours. I'm not quite sure. So obviously we've got this bluey greeny ribbon that was kind of around the bodice of that cute dress of my daughter's. So we could have that kind of, you know, popped along somewhere. That's kind of fun to have it at the top of the book page pocket. So maybe we'll kind of do something like that, I'm thinking. This doesn't appear to be drying overly well because this surface maybe is too glossy and too sheeny, so that's a bit of a shame if that doesn't dry. I'm just having a look through to the side of me at the things that I have actually stamped so far to see whether we can kind of incorporate anything. I have got this clock here and I have got this Forever and Always, so I'm just going to tear this out kind of loosely in the shape of the words. It's not in the shape of the words obviously, but it's just following around the rough kind of shape, if that makes sense. You know, and I mean, again, I'm just kind of playing with things and experimenting with what might look cute on this page. I'm not saying that, you know, we're going to kind of use these things. You know, God forbid that I would actually commit myself this early on, but we're just, you know, I'm just playing around and kind of seeing what might look cute. So I'm just going back through my little pile of rubbish that sat to the side of me, seeing what else I've got. I've got this little card which has got this kind of bluey green butterfly, so we could cut that out and use that somewhere. Again, obviously that glare of the scissors from the bulb is making it very difficult, so I'm just going to pull them out of frame so that I can try and cut around them a little bit better without the light kind of shining right on them. So hoping that you're all kind of maybe crafting along, doing your own projects, you know, maybe kind of a, you know, junk journal as well. You know, that kind of would be really fun if kind of, you know, we were all doing something like this together. I'm really having a lot of fun with this. I'm finding it, you know, quite challenging because obviously I'm having to be a lot more creative and imaginative, where I don't have obviously the volume of items, or not necessarily the volume of items, but the quality of items, I suppose, or the kind of selection of items that I would normally have. I mean, I have got now quite a good volume, but I mean, obviously they're not necessarily things that I would normally use, which is kind of obviously making me have to think a little bit more. You know, which kind of, yeah, is a challenge, but, you know, a good one. So I'm going to staple this on. Oops. And again, you know, obviously you could stitch this on. I just don't have my sewing machine, so, you know, we're just going to staple. And I'm loving how the staples are looking. I think I've run out of staples now in there. Hold on. Loving how the staples are looking in this journal. It really just looks so funky with the, you know, because it's a kind of pure junk journal. The staples are just looking absolutely awesome. So, you know, they're obviously really in keeping with the theme, and they just look really, really, really cool. So, yeah, kind of no fuss to me that I haven't got my sewing machine here. I'm loving how the staples are looking. There we go. I've got slightly inky fingers which are now kind of getting onto the ribbon, but again, doesn't really matter because, you know, that's the kind of look we're going for anyway. So, you know, the last thing we actually want from this journal is for it to look really perfect. You know, that would be just not really kind of in keeping, I think, with the original intention. Okay, nearly done. Just do that last bit here. Right, so I'm just going to trim this off just a bit here, but I might have it just hanging slightly. I quite like it kind of with the dangly bit there, you know, looks kind of cute. So, and what we haven't done, we haven't obviously decorated around the page at all. So I'm just going to bring the, this is where I discover I haven't got my saddle brown ink pad, which I normally would use, you know, my stays on to actually stamp around. I don't appear to have it. Must have forgotten to actually bring it up with me. So going to have to stamp some pink on, which wouldn't have been my choice, but you know, I'm just going to go with it because otherwise sometimes, you know, I can spend all day kind of just to make one video, which, you know, can be not very kind of time efficient really. So yeah, have to sometimes just kind of make do and think, oh well, you know, not what I would have chosen for this, but you know, I can't really just take up even more time going back and forth, getting all different things. So, you know, and I think that looks fine anyway. So, you know, I'm sure that's not a problem to have it like that. Now, I'm still deciding what to back this cupcake on. So, whether or not we want to back it on this little stripy fabric like that. If we had, we could have the butterfly actually on the cake. Looks kind of cute, doesn't it? And actually we said we were going to go around this with some pink, and that would obviously bring that pink in a little bit more from the that we've just used for the stamping. So I'll just kind of go around there a little bit. There you go. Do we like it with the bluey green stripe, or do we prefer this kind of flowery one that obviously is kind of the same as the, I probably prefer it on the bluey green stripe. I will just double check that we wouldn't prefer it on like some of this kind of fabric from that little skirt. Hold on. You see, I always like this soft net fabric because it's very subtle. It's kind of there, but barely, if you see what I mean. You know, which I think is just, it very rarely, you know, kind of doesn't work, I think. You know, the majority of the time when you kind of pop it on something, you think, oh yeah, that does work. So I'm just going to kind of cut that roughly, kind of like that. Just going to check them in frame again and still filming. Yep, looking good. Very terrified now that it's going to have stopped on me. Right, what's going on here, if you can see, it's not quite big enough. It's not got the width, obviously, for the cupcake. The cupcake's quite fat, so we're not going to be able to have that unless we kind of double layer, kind of have one bit one side and then one bit the other side, which we could do that. Happen to have some here, so we could have it like that. Perhaps, yeah, perhaps we'll have it like that, because actually I'm thinking this is a bit of an overdose of that colour. So what I might do, cut this seam off just down the side, and I will stick it onto the widest part of that fabric first of all. Just going to use my wet glue. Like that. I've been getting into a series called Homecoming, I think it's an Amazon Prime series. It's with Julia Roberts and a chap who I've seen him in films, but I'm not sure what his name is, but it's very good. I think I'm up to episode 4 now, and yeah, it's quite gripping now, you know, kind of where when it ends it's like, oh no, I've got to wait till tomorrow now. You know, obviously I'm binge watching it, it's all on there, but you know, it kind of gets too late and then I have to kind of go up to bed. I feel then disappointed I've got to wait till the following day to actually watch it again. The first couple of episodes were a little bit slow and kind of took me a little bit of time to kind of, you know, decide whether it was worth watching. But now it's getting very, very good. Yeah, really quite exciting, quite, you know, gripping, and definitely kind of gets you thinking, oh no, come on, come on, come on, you know. And obviously, as well as that, it's also a bit of a kind of mystery. So at the moment, not entirely sure what exactly has gone on or / going on. So it's, yeah, it's really quite good. So I'd recommend that if anyone was kind of, you know, wanting something to watch at the moment, then that's quite a good one. Well, I'm enjoying it anyway, so you maybe would too. Right, I'm just going to ink around these. I mean, I do notice that, you know, Amazon seems to do lots of quite good things now. And they're getting, you know, quite a few of the kind of quite big stars, aren't they? So their things are quite good quality now. Well, I say now, maybe they always have been. I just maybe haven't watched any of their earlier things. But it's nice to have, sorry, I'm just going to cut this out of frame again so I'm not with the scissors. It's nice to have kind of other things to watch. And when they pop them on there as a whole box set, and you can just kind of binge watch it instead of, you know, having to wait for the next episode, which, you know, is always a little bit boring. Which I guess is, you know, exactly the problem here, is that obviously you guys, you know, you do have to kind of wait for the next episode. I mean, I'm filming these literally as fast as I can, but they obviously take quite a fair amount of time to film them, to upload them, you know, and obviously I have other things that I'm doing at the same time, so it's not like I can just dedicate my life to doing this. You know, I've got quite a lot of stuff going on at the moment in my life, and you know, this is kind of, you know, I love this and I'm not complaining in any way, shape or form, but you know, I'm dedicating as much time as I can to doing this. But you know, obviously I realise that because I like watching things kind of in a binge watch, so you know, waiting for another kind of episode is a little bit tedious. But the thing is, it's very hard to do it otherwise, you know, kind of, I mean, in an ideal world, you'd kind of have them all ready to go and be able to kind of just upload one each day or something, you know, or put the whole box set up there. And that would be fantastic. But, you know, obviously when you kind of have other things, other commitments, that's just not a possibility. So, you know, it's as disappointing for me as it is for people watching. So, yeah. Right, I think that looks really cute. So, liking that. We also made that little flower, so we could have that somewhere if we wanted. I haven't popped a centre in that flower yet. Got some more of these little cupcakes. Oh, and there just happens to be a little teal coloured one. So let me just try and break these off. These were from that bracelet, if you recall. I used one on an earlier page. It was a pink one. I think it was the page that we made the glassine bag from the cereal packet. Whoops. But they're very cute, aren't they? So we could have that there. Maybe not. We could have it up there. Might have it somewhere because I just think it's, you know, what were the odds of having a little cupcake of the colour that we're actually using? So I'm going to glue this down. I'm going to use the hot glue this time because, you know, this is not dry and it's kind of curling up now. So I could do with getting it kind of stuck down sooner rather than later, if you see what I mean. So I'm going to do it in 2 halves. Oops, let me just pop another glue stick in now. Okay. That piece, and then we'll just glue the bottom down. Don't need to go right to the bottom because obviously this cupcake's actually a bit longer than the pocket, so we just go down to kind of roughly where we think. Kind of pop it down like that. Oops, just burnt my finger there. Oh well, all in a good cause, wasn't it? So there we go. Looks very cute, I think. So now covered in glue. I was covered in stuff already before we even got started today, but even more so now. Then obviously I've got this clock. I wonder if that's on there already. And we've got this Forever and Always, so we could have the clock kind of poking out here possibly. And the Forever and Always up there. And then we could just have the cupcake somewhere around, and obviously the butterfly kind of there. That looks really sweet, I think. And then we could have some ruffle somewhere on there as well. So let me just see how our packets are doing. They appear to be trying okay now. So we could attempt to actually make a little bow from these before we kind of get too far on, you know, before I stick too much stuff down is what I mean. So I don't know whether this will work at all. I have done this with fabric and it has worked really beautifully. Obviously I have not ever done it with a sweet wrapper, so I haven't the foggiest whether this is going to work. It may just look like utter rubbish, you know, and it will be something else that I'll think, oh, embarrassing that I actually did that in front of people. But we could give it a try. So what I'm thinking is if we kind of gathered these in, pinched them to make like a bow tie kind of shape. So and they're sticking together a bit just with the gesso that's still kind of wet. So let me just pop just a tiny bit of the glue on there, just to kind of hold that together. I mean, as I say, this maybe is not going to really resemble much of a bow anyway. You know, it was just kind of a little idea that I thought might be kind of nice to try. So we'll see. So I'm just going to bring this one in. And again, oops, just literally kind of run a bit of hot glue across the back here. Obviously try not to burn my fingers. Pinch it together down here. Stuck completely on the page. Right, so we've got those two. And you see, I'll just move that to one side so you can see a bit better. When you put them together, they then make a little kind of bow shape, which I just think is rather cute. And actually, I'm just wondering whether we could kind of put the cupcake in between. And actually now it looks weirdly enough a little bit more like a butterfly than a bow, but we'll just see if we could have that anywhere around the page. So we could have it there. I mean, I did rather like the butterfly on the cake, but maybe a bow would look kind of better. Then the butterfly's a little bit lost kind of around the page itself. Let's pop this down because, you know, I definitely quite like that up there. just wet glue that one like that. And then I do quite like this. I think it's kind of cute. But it's just a case of where would we have it, really. I suppose we could have it somewhere across here. Oh, that's quite sweet, isn't it? So I'm going to just pop this butterfly down. Now I do normally leave the wings flapping. The only thing is this particular leaf, this side, was on a fold of the card, so it's got a kind of crease in there. So we'd have to be careful not to knock it too much and tear it off. And just pop this clock down. Again, I'm just using the hot glue purely for speed, because then that's kind of, you know, stuck hard and fast onto there, like that. And then here, just going to stick that bow onto this ruffle. So just literally hot glue one piece and the other piece. That, and then we're going to just pop the cupcake across there. So I have to be careful, because instantly when the hot glue touches the metal is red hot, as I'm sure you all know, because you've probably all got hot glue guns and kind of, you know, well aware of kind of how hot everything that touches them gets. Right, so I mean, I think that's really, really cute. And then we could have something else down the bottom. I'm just checking I'm in frame and still recording. Yep. So we could have something else down the bottom, like some of the fabric that's on the hole reinforcers. Just kind of ruffled down the bottom. Or we might think it doesn't really need that. I'm just going to distress ink this so that it's a little bit darker, because obviously at the moment it's quite white compared to the page, so it makes it more difficult to kind of tell what it would look like. So if we were to kind of have that like that, and we could just have it kind of stuck along the bottom. I mean, to be honest, it probably doesn't really need that. I'm probably being a bit kind of over decorating. And actually, I don't normally stick things right kind of to the corner, but I quite like that stuck right down in the corner like that, rather than halfway up the page. So I think that's what we'll do. So I'm just going to pop it down here, kind of right down like that. So again, I'm just going to use the hot glue, and I'm just going to get it as close to the corner as I can, but leaving a bit of an edge, because obviously, you know, this isn't straight, and, you know, I don't want it kind of overhanging. So I've just got it as close as we could get, like that. So I love that page. And I love that bow with the naked bar wrapper. That looks so cute. So that was kind of my intention for those wrappers all along. And yeah, I'm glad that kind of found a use for that. So love that page. So I think that looks good just as it is. I don't think it needs anything else kind of going on there. So I'm going to move that page to one side. Now, also at the end of yesterday, oh, and we've done both those pages now. So both sides, so that's rather nice. Also, what we did yesterday, or you know, in the last episode, sorry, not yesterday, is we have potentially kind of got these items ready here. So we were going to make a little booklet here. So I'm just going to distress ink this paper kind of on the inside, because otherwise it's obviously very white. Oops, could have done with a new ink pad here, but never mind, we'll have to just go with what we've got really. So because I don't think I've got an ink pad obviously with me. And then here on the front, I'm going to just distress ink slightly where we've done the treatment, as we're calling it, of this glossy surface. So we're just distressing around it like that. Oops. And then we were going to have obviously this piece on the front of it. So I'm just going to distress ink that. I think we did do that already, but I just thought it needed a little bit more kind of on there. So we've got that. And then we were going to make a little kind of booklet by popping these extra sheets in. So the first thing we'll do is kind of staple these into, you know, what's kind of like the spine. Not quite enough, so I don't think I've got any bulldog clips either. So, oh, I have actually. There we go. So I'm just going to kind of hold that in place there. I wonder if I've got another one. No, I don't think I've got another one, but I have got some paper clips. So we'll just hold it with a paper clip the other side. The only reason I'm doing this is because actually I'm going to have to kind of fold this over a couple of times to be able to staple this in. So I didn't want it kind of moving around too much. Again, obviously, you know, could have sewn this, but I just don't have the sewing machine. So the staples are absolutely fine. You know, they work perfectly well. So there we go. And we're going to have it on this page, I think we said. So we've got both of these pages. I think I said didn't really want it on here because I didn't want two booklet type items kind of back to back. And I've obviously glued this down. Don't you just hate it when things like this happen? Right. Glued that there. I think what that was. Right. So that was our page that we did obviously in the last episode. So I'm just moving that to one side. Right, so we're going to have it on here, which is the back of this page. So these are our little page hole reinforcers. So I might just glue those down now, and that's then, you know, done and finished, and you know, we don't have to worry about those. So there we go. Oops. That's one. There we go. I mean, they just look pretty on their own, don't they? I think that fabric's just so lovely. And then we've got obviously this piece here. So really now it's just a case of deciding how else we want to kind of decorate around here. So what we could do is obviously, you know, back this onto some fabric or some book page, or we could just leave it and not back it onto anything. We could put some banners on here. You know, so let's just, I'm going to have a look through the little stash of supplies here to my side. obviously we've got some pink lace that we could use. We have got, oh, we've got that pink ribbon, although I don't, well, yeah, I was going to say I don't want to use that because it's backing onto the other bit of purple ribbon, but actually that was the last page that we did, so on this page it would be absolutely fine. Got some more of these little flowers. This one's very squashed. He's seen better days, this one. Oh well, he looks okay now that I've straightened him out, so wasn't looking too healthy to begin with. So we could kind of add a bit of blue onto the page so we've got a bit more kind of colour going on. Let's have a look. We could have the bunting going across. We've used that obviously on another page, bunting, but I always do love bunting, it always looks pretty. We could obviously back it onto some fabric. Probably not that fabric. We've got this one. It's quite pretty against that. That's more of that. For some reason bunting is kind of drawing me in a bit. And actually just spotted this piece of tissue from one of those coasters, because somewhere in my stash I had obviously that grease-proofy paper stuff that those coasters are kind of backed onto, which I don't think we've actually used. I might be wrong. Just rummaging through all my supplies here. And just typical, I can't actually see it anywhere. But I did, however, spot some more fabric, so we'll just pull that in. Ah, and another one of those little flowers. No, I can't see that piece of greaseproof type. Ah, there it is. I didn't think we'd used it. So what I did wonder, my intention for this was I had folded it up and I thought it would look cute. Just kind of like tucked around something. So I'm wondering if we could kind of have that like that. I mean, I know it's not kind of obviously necessarily adding anything, but I do think that's really pretty. So I don't know whether that would distress at all, but we could try and distress it a bit in pink. Obviously we only need to distress the one side because the other side would be kind of hidden. I mean, maybe that doesn't really kind of add anything to that, in which case, you know, it's probably pointless using it, but there's something about it that I think is really quite nice. And then just a case of deciding how we want to kind of layer this. So I think what we'll do is a little bit of stamping around. Now, unfortunately, again, I would have gone for the brown, but I haven't got the brown ink pad, so we're going to have to just, you know, go for this really. Let me just have a look at some of the stamps that I've got to my side here. Sorry guys. So got these lovely stamps here. So I think I might use this. Actually no, I'm going to use this one. This one's like a combination of sheet music and also script. So, you know, we'll just kind of randomly just kind of stamp that around. Like that. You know, it just kind of takes up some of that blank space really. and just, you know, definitely does kind of add just enough, I think, just enough to, you know, take out the boredom, if you know what I mean. So that looks kind of cute, I think. So I'll just now pop that out of the way. And then, you know, if we want to kind of mix that up with some other colours on this page, we could start adding in kind of some of the flowers and things. Or obviously we could kind of have the bunting going up here, and then kind of have at the bottom some ribbon or some of the lace or something. Or perhaps what we should have is a kind of tab going off to the side. So if we just cut that down. If we were to have kind of that there, I mean, that looks quite nice, I think. So let's say that we're going to have the little tab. And we're going to have that, you know, regardless of what else we're going to decide to have on here. It needs to be in a little bit more, actually, because I've just noticed it's kind of completely overhanging the side of the book. So obviously had overestimated just how big the page was. And then if we have that, let me just see whether we could kind of or perhaps we should have some ruffle going down here and then have that. Yeah, I think we'll do that. So I'm just going to literally tear this like that, and then again I think what I'll do is just hot glue this ruffle, because obviously this is quite a delicate piece and I don't necessarily want to have staples kind of running down because it is quite delicate. So just kind of have it just hot glued in a kind of ruffly fashion there along the side. Like that. And then this one, either have it stuck over or under, probably under actually. So we'll just pop that on like that. Again, just deciding whether to hot glue or wet glue this. So I might just wet glue it, but then hot glue kind of the edge that's going to be on that ribbon. So we're just going to pop this down like this, but then I would just literally hot glue here so that this glues instantly down onto that ribbon. Like that. And we've got this that we could have there. Do we want that? It doesn't really add anything, does it? Doesn't really add anything. I really wanted to use those. Maybe we still will get the chance on another page, but it's looking less likely, isn't it? So, you know, who knows. Right, I'm just going to check I'm still in frame and still filming. Yep, looking good. Right, the other thing that I did gesso was this clock that I got from the Laura Ashley catalogue ages ago. You know, many episodes ago, we kind of stuck it onto the card and, you know, distressed it with the hopes of using it. Didn't use it, it didn't look quite right. I have treated as we're calling it today, so I wondered whether it would now look more in keeping with the journal. So just going to distress it and see what we think. It still doesn't look right to me anyway, so let me just have a look. Don't think we're going to get to use this anywhere, which I just feel a bit gutted because I really liked that clock and I wanted to use it somewhere. Well, maybe we'll use it in a future page, who knows. So we've got this like this, and then obviously it would open up and you'd have all this journaling space down here. So that's that. We could just have maybe a kind of ticket or something, or a little butterfly kind of stuck on here. So just cut that out. Just distress this a bit. Like that. And then we could have one of these butterflies. I thought I had done some different colour. Let me just have a look through my kind of items here. Right, we've got some paper bag with some stamped butterflies. Not that they stamped very well, unfortunately, but I'm just going to move this out of frame again so that I can try and cut it out without the scissors casting that huge shadow. Obviously, if this doesn't really kind of show up enough, we could either do a Martha Stewart one, or I think there were a couple of butterflies on some of the cards that we've already used, kind of in the background or on the backs of them. So we could kind of use something like that. So, well, he does show up enough. Does he go? That's the question. Does he go? Not convinced that he does, weirdly enough. Let me just see. We have also got this from the wallpaper. Just having another bit of a look through all my bits and bobs that I've got lying around. So if I just kind of pull things back in. So what we could do is either cut out one of these or punch there, because that's actually, you know, that really nice kind of pearly effect paper. I've got that Vintage Emporium, which we haven't used anywhere, which I loved. So we could try and use that somewhere. Let me just have a look through. And obviously we've got some butterflies here. I've been kind of saving this, you know, for some random reason. Just more hoarding. Oh, I'd also dug out a couple of other cards from more drawers that I went through. So we've still got these we could use on other pages. Look at this one with all this glitter. Really pretty. So let's have a look. Right, what was my first plan? Was to try one of these. So I don't know how well these are going to cut out. They are very tiny, and maybe would be better doing them as little, you know, just torn around the edges. But I'll try. I will try and cut the bigger one of the two out and see how that kind of comes out. It's just sometimes when things are too tiny, I find that you kind of lose what they were actually supposed to be. It's probably just my naff cutting. But because these are so nice, I obviously don't want to kind of waste them. But obviously once I've cut this, if it looks terrible, it will be wasted, so it'll be too late. So we could have that somewhere. Oh, I don't think it goes on that page actually. It's quite brown. No, not that one. So I'm going to cut out this Vintage Emporium logo, which I love. Again, this might not go because it's obviously black. But again, let's try. Again, this may need the treatment that I've become so fond of since Block 44 had recommended kind of using it. I may find that this would look quite good if it actually had some of that on there. I do really love this, but maybe not on that page. So I'm going to put that, I'm making a little collection there to my right of things that I definitely want to try in other journals. So, right, nothing for me has worked so far. So I think what I'm going to do is possibly try some kind of bunting or something up here. So let's just try cutting out some triangles. You know, because maybe that would just be kind of just right. Trying to think how to do these to get the kind of maximum I can from the fabric. Just have one here. That. Come on. There we go. So that looks kind of sweet, doesn't it? And just wondering whether, oops. So I think what we'll do is I will just punch out a butterfly, because I'm not entirely convinced that this buff coloured one overly kind of goes there. So I'm just going to take this and just punch one out of here. Just goes better, doesn't it? So you know, because this page is quite pink, I didn't really kind of have anything tying that buff colour into it, so it didn't look quite right for me. So we'll just pop one little flag down there, another one, and one more. Like that. I mean, we could just see whether, you know, sometimes if you just add a splash of a different colour, it's like, ta-da! You know, kind of does something to a page. So I just wanted to kind of see what impact that adding kind of the blue would actually have on the page. I know that sounds very strange, but sometimes for me, just suddenly a contrast kind of then lifts the whole page and changes it completely. And sometimes, so I love that, you know. I mean, I do think they look kind of really nice. I wish that I had something I could use here. I've got this little handbag from another bracelet. It's not quite right, which is a shame, because colour-wise it's perfect with those flowers, isn't it? Just literally having another look through my stuff here, just to see whether I've got anything else. I've got this butterfly. I'm going to struggle to cut him out. I can see that already, because he is not looking a good shape for me. You know, I don't think he would resemble a butterfly if I tried to cut him out at all. So I don't think that's kind of quite right. I'm just hunting for something a similar turquoisey colour. That's literally all I'm actually doing at the moment, because it would be nice to have something else that kind of blue shade, but I can't see anything offhand. I have got this little dentist card for my son, but that's obviously a more green shade rather than blue. Ah, hold on. Right, well, this is a much darker blue, obviously, but I just wonder if I'd be able to punch out a butterfly from this piece of bag. Hold on. Oh, come on. Obviously that is really too dark blue, so I don't think that's really working, so I think it's going to have to be kind of as is really. So we can either have it kind of without the flowers or with them. I personally do think it's nice with them. I like that splash of colour, so I'm just going to go for that, because I was determined not to kind of hold you all up with my deliberating nonsense that goes on, and straight away it starts then going back into it, so I'm going to stop that. I'm just going to stick these down and just go for it, and then I'm just going to cut the stem off. I think certainly cut it down anyway. And then, I mean, as I say, we could use this little bag because that does at least tie the colour in. Maybe that would look kind of good. Got some more of those little flowers, so we could have one down here. Oops. Just pop the butterfly on. Like that. Check time wise what we're doing. Right, I'm literally 1 minute, 1 hour 2 minutes according to that, so I need to crack on now and finish so that I'm not literally taking up all of your time, just, you know, wasting lots of time. No, that's too green as well. It's a shame I can't actually see another one of those bright blue flowers anywhere. And you know what will happen as soon as I kind of switch the camera off, you know, and clear my things away from my son's desk, I will obviously find one laying around. So I might just have to leave it without another flower for the minute, and then hope that I'm going to come across one somewhere, you know, before the next episode. Yeah, I think that's probably my best bet. So I'm not going to pop that on there because I'm going to live in hope that I'm going to suddenly find one of the brighter blue ones between now and the next episode. So yeah, I'm going to kind of leave it there, I think. So all we're going to do, whoops, I forgot that we hadn't actually glued this down, is obviously glue this onto the page. So again, I'm going to use my hot glue. I hope that this is going to glue down okay, because obviously this is that very shiny type paper. But hopefully it's going to be okay. Okay. So they're obviously a little kind of opening booklet, which I think is super cute. Love this little tab there, really looks sweet. for me, there's just something going on down here that it does need, but obviously I'm aware that we're now kind of up to our time really for this episode, so I don't want to kind of obviously take up more of your time, you know, we're already kind of over the hour. So I'm just going to cut out one of these tickets, and then we'll just pop this ticket hopefully on the bottom, and then kind of hopefully go from there. So I wonder if it's actually that London Bridge doesn't really go. Well, I'm going to leave it like that for today, and then obviously we can kind of play around with this a bit more in the next episode. So I think kind of sometimes you can kind of, you know, try too hard in one sitting, and what you need to do is kind of have a walk away and then come back to it. So I'm just going to leave it there for now, and we'll come back to it next time. So yeah. Hope that you guys enjoyed the episode, and obviously, you know, we did complete this gorgeous page, which I'm really loving, so I hope that you guys really liked it too. Yeah, hopefully catch you next time, and have a nice time until then. Thanks very much. Bye.